What happens when the most unpredictable guest in television history faces off with the most diplomatic host in late night, and neither one backs down? You're about to witness one of the most explosive moments ever broadcast, a showdown that left producers scrambling, audiences stunned, and one very famous guest storming off stage. Before we dive in, make sure to hit that subscribe button, and tell me in the comments what you think really caused this on-air meltdown. The Tonight Show studio buzzed with its usual pre-show energy, but something felt different that night. Donald Trump was the headline guest, there to promote his latest business venture. And everyone knew that meant unpredictability was guaranteed. Jimmy Fallon, famous for his easygoing charm and non-confrontational style, had prepared a mix of lighthearted questions and games. Everything seemed normal, until it wasn't. As the cameras rolled, Jimmy's monologue hit all the right notes, getting the usual laughs. But when he introduced his guest, the mood shifted. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Donald Trump," he announced, his voice bright, though those who knew him could sense the unease behind the smile. Trump strode out confidently, waving to a crowd that responded with a mix of cheers and a few scattered boos. Settling into his chair, he leaned back with that trademark smirk. "Donald, great to have you back on the show," Jimmy began, trying to keep things upbeat. "Always a pleasure, Jimmy," Trump replied smoothly. "Though I have to say, your ratings, pretty sad lately." "Really sad numbers. I mean, when I'm not on, who's watching, right?" The control room tensed. Jimmy laughed nervously, brushing it off. "Well, we're just happy to have you here tonight. You've got some exciting projects to talk about." "Exciting doesn't even begin to cover it," Trump said. "But before we get into that, what's with all the fake news stories about me lately? Your writers get their jokes from the same people who said I'd never win." The audience grew quiet. This wasn't going to be the typical Tonight Show banter. Jimmy kept smiling, though his voice was tight. "We just try to keep things fun here. Comedy's about finding humor in current events." Trump leaned forward. "No, Jimmy, let's talk about this. You had me on your show before. You ruffled my hair, we had a good time. Then your liberal friends attacked you for being nice to me, and now you're overcompensating with cheap shots. Sad." The crowd shifted uncomfortably. No one was sure if they were watching a comedy bit or a real confrontation. "Donald, that's not fair," Jimmy said evenly. "We treat all our guests with respect." "That's what this show's about. Respect?" Trump scoffed. "Last week, your monologue had 3 jokes about me. I counted them. My people counted them. And they weren't even funny. If you're gonna mock me, at least be good at it." Producers in the control room were panicking, debating whether to cut to commercial, but the live ratings were spiking as social media lit up. Something unprecedented was happening. Jimmy took a breath. "Comedy's always been about poking fun at public figures, Donald. It's never personal. Not personal? It's always personal when you attack someone's reputation," Trump shot back. "You think hiding behind comedy gives you a free pass to spread lies?" "We're a comedy show," Jimmy replied, his tone firming. "Not a news outlet." "But people believe you, Jimmy," Trump countered. "They get their information from you. You have influence, whether you admit it or not." The tension was now unmistakable. Jimmy, known for keeping politics off his stage, was suddenly in the middle of one. "I think we should move on and talk about your projects," he suggested. "Why, because you're uncomfortable?" Trump pressed. "Because this is too real for your sanitized little show? You media people love dishing it out, but you can't take it when someone calls you out." The audience was glued to every word. Phones were secretly recording despite security's best efforts. Jimmy leaned forward, his patience wearing thin. "Donald, I'm not avoiding anything." And that's when the real fireworks began. "I just think our audience came here to be entertained," Jimmy said carefully, trying to diffuse the growing tension. "Not to watch us argue." "Argue?" Trump shot back, his tone sharp. "Is that what you call it when someone points out your hypocrisy? Come on, Jimmy. You built your whole career on being the nice guy, the one who never takes sides. But that's all an act, isn't it?" Jimmy's jaw tightened. For the first time in his career, the easygoing host's composure began to crack. The studio lights felt hotter, the silence heavier. "An act?" Jimmy replied, his voice low but steady. "This isn't an act, Donald. I try to bring people joy, To give them a break from all the chaos and negativity in the world. That's not fake. That's intentional. Trump leaned forward, his voice dropping to that familiar, dangerous tone. Joy? You call it joy when you mock people? When your writers pull garbage from Twitter and dress it up as comedy. That's your idea of entertainment. We don't spread conspiracy theories, Jimmy said, struggling to keep his voice calm. We make jokes based on what's happening in the news. There's a difference. The news? Trump sneered. Let me tell you what's happening in the news, Jimmy. Your show, your whole industry, has become a propaganda machine. You pretend to be neutral, but every joke, every smirk, every little punchline is designed to shape opinion. You're not fooling anyone. That's ridiculous, Jimmy said. We're entertainers, not political operatives. Oh, really? Trump pressed. Then why don't you ever make jokes about the other side? Why is it always the same people, the same targets, the same agenda? In Jimmy's earpiece, his producers were practically shouting at him to cut to commercial. But something inside him snapped. Years of criticism, of walking the tightrope between laughter and politics, all came rushing to the surface. You want to know why? He said finally, his voice rising. Because some things aren't funny, Donald. Some things are too serious, too dangerous to joke about. When people's lives are at stake, when democracy itself is on the line, maybe comedy isn't the right response. The audience gasped. Jimmy Fallon, the man famous for staying neutral, had just taken a stand. Trump smiled, but it wasn't friendly. It was the smile of someone who'd gotten exactly what he wanted. There it is, he said. Finally, some honesty. You just admitted it. You're not a comedian, Jimmy. You're an activist, part of the resistance, part of the machine trying to destroy anyone who doesn't fit your narrative. I'm not trying to destroy anyone, Jimmy said, his voice shaking slightly. I'm trying to protect... Protect what? Trump interrupted. Your version of the truth? Your vision of how the world should be? Who made you the judge of what's dangerous or funny? Jimmy stood up from behind his desk, something he had never done during an interview. The audience murmured, sensing they were witnessing something unprecedented. Nobody made me anything, Jimmy said. But I have a platform. And a responsibility. When I see lies being spread, when I see people getting hurt, when I see this country tearing itself apart, I can't just sit here and laugh it off. Lies, Trump demanded. What lies, Jimmy? Be specific. Tell me exactly what I've said that isn't true. You want me to list them on live TV? Jimmy asked. I want you to prove it, Trump said. Back up your accusations with facts. Don't hide behind vague words and cheap applause. The control room was chaos. Producers were shouting over each other, executives panicking over the legal and PR nightmare unfolding live, while the ratings soared higher than ever. Jimmy looked at Trump, then out at the audience, then straight into the camera. He was standing at a crossroads, the moment that could define his career. You know what, Donald? He said. You're right about one thing. I have been too nice. Too afraid to upset people, too scared of losing sponsors, too desperate to keep everyone happy. But maybe that's the problem. Maybe being liked isn't the same as doing what's right. Maybe entertainment isn't enough when the world is burning around us. Trump's face hardened. The playful banter was gone. So you're admitting it, he said coldly. That the nice guy act was fake. That you've been lying to your audience, using your show to push your agenda while pretending to stay neutral. I'm admitting I've been a coward, Jimmy replied. I've avoided standing up for what I believe in because I didn't want to lose anyone's approval. But you can't make everyone happy when some people are trying to hurt others. Hurt others? Trump scoffed. The only person getting hurt right now is you. Your credibility, your reputation, your career. You're destroying everything you built, all because you can't handle a real conversation with someone who disagrees with you. The studio fell completely silent. Two men, each embodying a different slice of American media and culture, stood locked in a confrontation that felt like a fight for the soul of entertainment itself. Maybe some things are worth destroying if it means telling the truth, Trump sneered. The truth? Jimmy shot back. You mean the truth according to me and my corporate masters? You think you're brave? You're just a puppet. A very expensive, well-trained puppet. Jimmy's hands began to tremble. Whether from fury or adrenaline, no one could say. The usually affable host looked as if he'd reached his limit. "Call me a puppet if you like," he said. "But at least I'm not trying to manipulate millions with lies and division." Trump rose to his feet, mirroring Jimmy's intensity. The two men faced each other across the desk like modern gladiators, the audience trapped between them, hanging on every word. "You wouldn't recognize the truth if it walked up and shook your hand," Trump spat. "You live in a bubble surrounded by people who tell you exactly what you want to hear. When was the last time you spoke to someone who wasn't paid to agree with you?" "I talk to real people every day," Jimmy replied. "My audience, my staff, my family, real people with real concerns." "That's rich," Trump countered. "Your crowd laughs because they're cued to. Your staff flatters you because you sign their paychecks. Your family, probably just as out of touch." The barb about Jimmy's family made the host flush. Even in the heat of this exchange, it crossed a private line. "Don't you dare bring my family into this," Jimmy snapped. "It's all connected," Trump said. "Your privilege, your wealth, your isolation from the consequences of the policies you joke about. You sit in an ivory tower making quips about lives you'll never live." "Privilege?" Jimmy barked. "Please, you lecturing me about privilege? I've worked for what I have. I bring people joy. You, on the other hand, have built and lost businesses. You're repeating unproven claims like they're facts." "That's exactly my point," Trump said, his voice low and dangerous. Crew members who could have been working stood frozen, mesmerized by the verbal duel. Cameras kept rolling as the atmosphere thickened. "You wanted a soft interview, a boost." "A pat on the back," Trump said. "But I'm done being your validation machine." "A validation machine?" Jimmy repeated. "You came here to use my platform. You don't do favors, you do transactions. At least I try to be upfront about it." "Is this about power?" Jimmy asked. "About shaping opinion, destroying reputations?" "Maybe it is," Trump laughed harshly. "Maybe it's influence, and maybe you should use yours responsibly." "According to who?" Jimmy shot back. "Your network execs? Your allies? Who decides what's responsible?" "Anyone with a conscience," Trump said. "Anyone who values truth over ratings." Suddenly aware of the millions watching, Jimmy seemed to recollect where he was, the cameras, the audience, the live broadcast. But instead of retreating, something in him hardened. "Good," he said. "Let them see. Let them see what happens when someone stops playing games and calls out the truth." Trump's patience snapped. "This isn't truth. It's a tantrum," he hissed. "This is what happens when someone coddled their whole career meets someone who won't kiss their feet." The words landed like a gunshot. The audience gasped. For the first time that night, the studio felt like an arena, and the showdown, whatever its outcome, would be replayed long after the lights went out. Then so be it. Security. Two large guards stepped onto the stage, summoned by frantic producers who had finally decided enough was enough. Trump turned toward them, then back at Jimmy, his expression cold and unreadable, fury simmering just beneath the surface. "You're making the biggest mistake of your career," he said, voice low and sharp. "Maybe," Jimmy replied, his tone steady. "But at least I'll be able to look myself in the mirror tomorrow." Trump adjusted his tie, regaining that practiced composure that had carried him through countless confrontations. But when he spoke again, his words landed like a warning. "This isn't over, Jimmy. Not by a long shot." As the guards escorted Trump off stage, Jimmy remained behind his desk, staring out at an audience frozen between shock and disbelief. The air felt heavy, electric. No one clapped, no one spoke. Finally, Jimmy leaned toward the microphone, his voice breaking the silence. "We'll be right back after this commercial break." It was a moment that would echo across late-night television. Two icons of American culture stripped of pretense, revealing exactly what they thought of each other. But what do you think? Did Jimmy finally do what so many wish they could? Or did he cross the line? Tell me in the comments below.